Now, as of in this lecture, we are going to make some comparison on the solution architecture. As far in this course, we have seen a lot of different components so far, and now it's time to just take a step back and compare all the kinds of options we have when we do the solution architecture just with the web layer and the application layer. So we are going to compare EC2 with its own elastic IP, EC2 with Route 53, ALB plus ASG, ALB plus ECS on EC2, ALB plus ECS on Fargate, ALB plus Lambda, API Gateway plus Lambda, API Gateway with AWS services, and then finally API Gateway with an HTTP backend, for example, an ALB. Let's get started with that. So first, EC2 with elastic IP. So we have our user talking to our public instance and has a public IP and an elastic IP attached to it, and with an elastic IP address. And what we want to do is have some kind of failover. So we are going to have a standby instance and this a standby instance, and this standby instance is going to be there. So we want to fail over. So in case we want to fail over, we are going to have the elastic IP address and move all the way to the second EC2 instance in case of elastic recovery. Then our user will be redirected automatically because they have been using the elastic IP address to the standby instance. So this is very classic. It provides you quick failover. The client should not see the change happen because it can make with the same elastic address. It's very helpful, and if the client needs to resolve only by a static public IP address, but it does not scale because you can only have one EC2 instance and anytime serving traffic, and on top of it it's cheap, and so that's one solution architecture and it's not too bad. Okay, so next we have is the stateless web app scaling horizontally. So we want to scale them horizontally. So let's say we have we have three EC2 instances and they are public, but there's no elastic IP this time, and we have users. What the users will do is that they will perform a DNS query on Route 53, and they will get back an A record, and thanks to this A record, they are going to be able to talk to our EC2 instances. But what happens if one of these EC2 instances is going to be terminated? For example, in which case some of our users will not be able to reach our application, and that can be a problem. So in this case, we are to download something called DNS based balancing because based on the DNS results we are getting different answers, and this is how load balancing works. So we are able to use multiple instances, and Route 53 TTL implies that some clients may get outdated information. So even though we are able to have a health check, for example, it will take some time, maybe 1 hour in this case, because that's where the TTL is for our users. So that's where like for users to be redirected to the correct instance, it would take 1 hour. Finally, the clients may have some logic to deal with like host name resolution failures. For example, if one host name does not work, it may be interesting for us to do something, okay? So which is like redo a DNS query, force it, and resolve the DNS result to try another URL. So finally, I think an instance, if you do that with its own same scheme, they may not receive full traffic right away due to the DNS TTL. Again, you need to wait for the new clients to resolve the DNS for a new instance to receive some traffic. So this works fine, but this is the architecture that the both often choose, but it's not also the perfect one. Okay, then we have ALB plus ASG. So here's something that we have seen 1,000 times, where we have our Route 53 DNS query pointing as an alias record to an application load balancer. The ALB will have health checks, multi-AZ enabled, and then will be routing to 3 availability zones. 5 instances that are living in an auto scaling group. And so we have seen this as a very classic architecture on AWS that scales very well. The new instances that are added to our auto scaling group will be in service right away, because the load balancers will be routing traffic directly to them, and the users will never be sent to instances that are out of service. So here the health checks, that's very beneficial. This time to the time to scale here now is quite low, quite slow, because in case you add EC2 instances, you need to wait for the EC2 instance to start up, and there is the EC2 user data, bootstrap script, and somehow if you use an AMI that has all these things clear already, it can help speed up the time to scale, but it's quite slow, I would say. We are talking about a few minutes, but that's okay. That's very proper for many types of architecture. The ALB application load balancer is elastic, but it cannot handle sudden huge peak of demands. Okay, so you need to pre-warm it if you expect a massive load happening very soon, and in case some instances are overloaded, it's possible that you are losing a request, meaning that your clients have to retry some request over time in case they don't through. CloudWatch can be used for scaling the auto scaling group, and we have seen there is a cross zone load balancing, and if you want to evenly distribute across all AZ from the load balancer. Okay, so so just as a real world tip, which is that if you are trying to scale your auto scaling group, a good target utilization rise off for the a good number would be around within 40% to 70%, depending on how you feel about your application, to scale or down scale in or scale out. Okay, next we have ALB plus ECS on EC2 that is backed by an auto scaling group. So this is extremely similar to what we had before. It has the exact same properties as the discussion we just had before when we just had an ALB and an ASG. But now instead of having the task of instance run the application itself, we have ECS tasks on the instances. So the application has to be run on Docker, and because we are using ECS, it is possible to use dynamic port mapping feature to run multiple tasks on the same application on EC2 instances, potentially helping us maximize the utilization of an EC2 instance. The thing is though, with this architecture, as we discussed already, is that it's really tough to orchestrate ECS service auto scaling alongside auto scaling ASG. So it is very possible that you will need to have 2 sets of auto scaling rules in place to scale both your EC2 instances, and that will run your tasks and your service itself, and that will run the tasks as well. Now, so here ALB plus ECS, and for the other one, as we have been running the task on the EC2 instances, so the ECS on Fargate. In this case, we don't have any auto scaling group. We don't have any EC2 instances to manage. We have Fargate that has service auto scaling, and the task will be launched on the AWS network automatically for you. And we don't need to manage that at all. So the application again is run on Docker, service to be very quick. So we don't need to launch an EC2 instance in advance. And the only thing we need to launch is a Docker container. So it could be really quick to launch a Docker container, and you are still be limited by the ALB application load balancer in case of sudden peak of request. And the things we have made serverless in this instance is the application tier. And I don't like to call like ALB serverless, application load balancer serverless. I would like to call it as the managed, because it doesn't scale as nicely. But still it's very nice architecture, something very common that scales really well. That is no management, or that requires no management on your side, and is going to be very safe and very scalable. Next we are going to look at the serverless world. So we have Lambda. So we can use the application on ECS alongside Lambda. So we see that the target groups of an application load balancer could be Lambda, in which case we are going to be limited by the Lambda's runtime, timeout or anything. And the, actually here the storage requirements, everything. So remember, we have a specific client runtimes, and we can also have customer runtimes. But in case we don't have Docker, it's more and more accessed recommended to use ECS instead. But we are going to have seamless scaling thanks to our Lambda runtime, and it's going to be very helpful. Remember, when we have like 1,000 Lambda functions that can be concurrently executed, it's going to be very simple way to expose your Lambda functions as HTTP or HTTPS without using all the features from API gateway. And as you can expect, you get a lot of cost saving factors like 20 times or 10 times by using ALB plus Lambda. But you don't have the features here of the API gateway. The cool thing would be like is that you can combine this with the web application firewall or WAF for the security on your application load balancer, and it's good for the hybrid microservices. As an example would be like you can use ECS for some request and use Lambda for other request. Depending on the type of the workload, your Docker environment, or if it is a very simple function, this is a very fine solution architecture. One other thing that is lesser known on AWS but extremely helpful is, let's see next. Otherwise, here the one is more known is the API gateway plus Lambda. Previous one was the ECS plus Lambda. That is lesser known, but the API gateway plus Lambda is more known. Is going to be when you have API gateway and Lambda working together, in which case like you eventually pay for request, seamless scaling, fully serverless it would be. You need to be aware of soft limits like the 10,000 requests per second on your API gateway and 1,000 concurrent in execution. But both these things are sub limits, and you can increase that by contacting the AWS support. Because you have an API gateway, we get more features such as authentication, rate limiting, caching, API keys, and all the things we have seen before from before in the API gateway lectures. So Lambda cold start time may increase some latency for like 100 millisecond. For some requests, especially if you start as well as chaining up a bunch of these architecture together. We have seen this, but the good thing is that it's fully integrated with X-Ray, AWS X-Ray, so we can get full tracing of all the requests made within your infrastructure and optimize based on that. Finally, we see the API gateway can be also used with the AWS services as a proxy. And the architecture for understanding this would be the following. It's not the best where you have the client's API gateway and then Lambda, and Lambda will be, for example, putting a message into an SQS queue. So the better architecture here would be to have the client talk to the API gateway and the API gateway be integrated with the SQS directly. So we definitely would do this, number one, because we get lower latency and it's cheaper. We avoid invoking Lambda and it makes more sense. We are also not using Lambda. So the better architecture would be to have the client talk to the API gateway and the API gateway would be integrated with the SQS directly. So we definitely would do this, like number one, because we get the lower latency and it's cheaper. We avoid invoking Lambda and it makes more sense here. We are also not using Lambda concurrent capacity. There's no custom code to maintain, and we are exposing AWS API securely for the API gateway, which is what it was intended to be in first place. So this could be joined by only SQS. It could be SNS, step functions, and so on. So one thing to remember though is an API gateway has a payload limit of 10 MB, so it can be a problem if you are trying to have an API gateway as a proxy for S3 and uploading more than 10 MB of file. Okay, lastly, API gateway with HTTP backend and for example an ALB. So we have this architecture, and we would use this for getting the API gateway features on top of a custom HTTP backend. So we would want the authentication, the rate control, API keys, caching, etc. etc. It can connect to on-premise servers, an application load balance, or even a third-party HTTP service. Okay, so that's it for this lecture, and we have visited all the ways to make a web layer and compute layer so far. I hope everything makes a great sense and understanding these all of the concepts, and I hope this discussion of solution architecture are bringing your thinking forward, and I will see you in the next lecture.